Hey, what's up, everybody? Back again today to do another movie review. And today we're going to be talking about Justice Society World War II. It is the latest DC animated movie from DC's animation department. And I had high hopes for this movie, but before we get any further, I want to go ahead and just to give you an idea of what we're talking about for those of you who haven't seen, for those of you who don't know, we're going to go ahead and play the trailer, and then we're going to talk about it. So here we go.
They've taken control of most of Europe and Russia.
Merciful heaven, an invasion.
That's not all, Mr. President.
I take it that's where your big idea comes in.
Let me introduce you to the team.
We said we would end this war. Too many people have died. We can stop this. We need to utilize every metahuman we can.
Who've you got there, Wonder Woman?
I'm from the future.
It's not impossible.
Are you ready to end this war?
I thought you'd never ask.
Then, welcome to the team.
If this goes haywire, blame the new guy.
Turns out the Nazis are launching a surprise attack.
Then we stop them.
Mother of God.
Kid, you ain't seen nothing yet.
So that's the movie, or that's a look at the movie. Now, I'm going to go ahead and try and get all the positive things I want to say about this movie out of the way. And then I'm going to tell you what I really think about it and get into the nitty gritty of it. So, right off the bat, I love this new animation style that DC animated movies are going with. This is the third one now, I believe, to feature this animation style. Actually, it might just be the second. The first one was Superman, Man of Tomorrow. Now we have this one, and this is the second. The third one is going to be Batman: The Long Halloween. Now, with that, I was kind of hoping that with these films sharing the same animation style, it meant that the DC animation and the DC animated movie people were starting a new collective universe with their DC animated movies. And that has not entirely been ruled out yet, but it's not going the direction that I had hoped it would, and we'll get more into that later. But just to keep going with the positive things, the voice acting was good, especially Wonder Woman. I like the whole like the foreign accent that they're giving Wonder Woman lately. We Diana in the Zack Snyder Justice League movie and in all of the DCEU movies, Gal Gadot plays Wonder Woman, and she has that accent, which is a nice touch. And it is cool to see a lot of DC characters that we wouldn't normally see. Jay Garrick, it was cool to see him. We have seen him before in some other stuff, but it's cool to see him again. And characters like Hourman was actually fun to see in animation and actually in something other than comic books. You know what I'm trying? You know what I mean? So that's all good. And yeah, that's about it for the positive stuff. Let's just dive into the nitty gritty of it. The nitty gritty of it is this is a movie. It's a movie. And the reason it's like that is it's mainly one thing. This does not. It hints at a larger DC movie universe, but not in the way that I had hoped. So the previous movie universe ended with Justice League Dark Apocalypse War. And it ends with Barry Allen. John Constantine tells Barry Allen, you need to go back in time and do another Flashpoint and reset the universe. And so he does that. The last thing you see in Justice League Dark Apocalypse War is Barry running back and starting another Flashpoint. And with this movie featuring Barry Allen arriving in some weird alternate World War II past, I was kind of hoping that even though the animation styles were different, I was kind of hoping it was going to continue off of that. And the Barry Allen we see in this movie is the one that ran back in time at the end of Apocalypse War. tiny spoilers in this video, nothing that's really going to ruin the plot, but just to answer, I think, a lot of people's big questions. One of them being, is this that same Barry Allen? No, it's not. The movie starts out showing this Barry Allen from Justice Society. It shows him in modern times, and he does something right then and there that takes him back in time. So we clearly see that this is not the Barry Allen from Apocalypse War. That was kind of disappointing. If they are creating a new DC universe, I would have liked to see it kind of come from the previous one and mesh into the new one. But I suppose it's not the end of the world. We can still get a new animated universe without it connecting to the previous one, I suppose. But on that, this universe doesn't seem too tied together in that it's not building towards anything, really. Like in the previous one, there would be some cliffhangers and stuff in movies that would tease up for the next movie, and things it was very Marvel Cinematic Universe-ish in the previous iteration of DC animated movies. The movies built upon each other, and it culminated with Apocalypse War. These don't really feel like they're building towards anything. They don't feel like they're building towards the assembling of a Justice League. They don't feel none of that. They just seem like standalone movies, fun little standalone stories that take place in a shared universe, but they're not building towards anything. It's just, here's a fun DC story, and here's another one, and here's another one. They all take place in the same universe, maybe, but they're all pretty self-contained, and they don't tease up for anything bigger. It's not like the MCU, where the MCU is building up to Infinity War and Endgame. It's not like that. Or even just before that, like there was stuff in those movies that built up to Civil War. And then the effects of Civil War had an impact on even bigger stuff going on later on, like Infinity War and Endgame. It doesn't seem like we're going to get that with these DC animated movies, and that's kind of sad because that's what people want these days. Like, that's just a fact. I'm sorry. So yeah. And then another downside to this movie is that it's immediately, like, it's out now. You can watch it, and I watched it because I wanted to know. I wanted the answer to all these questions. But it's $20. It's not available for renting right now. It's only available for digital purchase. $20. You know, and I understand the business side of it. You know, you gotta ask yourself, okay, how much did it cost to make this movie? Okay, how many people do we think are out there? Best guess, best educated estimate. How many people do we think are out there that are going to be willing to pay money to watch it? Okay, so we have our budget, how much it costs to make it, and then we have our number of how many people are going to be willing to watch it. So now we have to come up with a price figure that earns us not only our budget back, but also makes us a profit based on the amount of people that we best guess are going to want to pay for it to watch it. And I guess that landed on $20 when they did the math. I guess they landed on $20. But man, that sucks. And I can't recommend this movie being worth buying for $20. I can't do it. It's not that great of a movie. It's definitely a fun DC story that'd be worth watching if you're just bored one day and you're like, I want to see something new from DC that I've never seen before. You know, if you could just like hop on Amazon Video and rent this for like $4, that'd be a good choice. But $20 to buy it, it would be worth it if I saw myself wanting to watch this multiple times. Like Apocalypse War, excuse me. Ooh. Apocalypse War I bought because that movie was fantastic. It was action-packed. It was thrilling, and I can tell I'm going to want to watch that more than once. I'm going to want to watch that several times. Every once in a while, I'm going to get in the mood to watch it. This one, not really. This is kind of a one and done. And the reason for that is because Barry does the time travel stuff. He ends up back during World War II. He meets this alternate. He even acknowledges, he's like, something. This is different. Like, you know, like Wonder Woman's here, and This isn't the past that I've been educated on in the future that I come from. He knows something's up, but it doesn't really go into too much detail about that. He immediately just pretty much just kind of like accepts this new past World War II era that he's in and jumps right into it. And at first they're just fighting Nazis. Like, there's no villain. You know what I mean? There's no real villain, super villain. There's no Vandal Savage. There's no Ra's al Ghul is immortal. You know, like there's none of these DC characters that are immortal and could still exist back in the World War II time, as well as the modern time, or just even maybe they're older characters and they're from World War II. There's none of those. They tried to create this character called the Advisor, I believe is what his name was, but that did not really amount to anything at all. So for the longest time in the movie, the whole first and good portion of second act, they're just fighting it's like fighting stormtroopers in Star Wars. It's just, you don't care about, they're just basic Nazi soldiers, and it's like, okay, well, they're gonna beat them. I mean, these people have freaking superpowers. Like, Wonder Woman's gonna wreck these normal human Nazis, and she does. Like, Wonder Woman, aside from the fact that this movie it's not very bloody, you know, anyone who watched Apocalypse War or who's watched the Invincible animated show on Amazon Prime, it's not that kind of animated show or animated movie. Like, it's not that bloody and graphic. But she whoops some ass. Wonder Woman definitely does shit to human beings in this movie that would result in them dying. Like, she straight up kills them. It just doesn't show their arms getting ripped off. It doesn't show blood splattering everywhere. But she does it. And so when they're fighting the Nazis, you're just kind of like, okay, wreck these people. And then later on in the movie, they try to introduce a more like superhuman type adversary, and I'm hesitant to talk about it because it is kind of a spoiler. But my thing about spoiler, the way I'm going to say this and then I'm going to talk about it. So my view on spoilers is, if you're going to be spoiling something that's really awesome and people would have really enjoyed watching it without knowing about it, then fuck you. You know, that's a piece of shit thing to do. But if you're spoiling something that's either just kind of meh or straight up sucks, then you're doing people a public service, because you're saving them the time. Like, you're letting them know, like, hey man, this is what's really going on in this movie, and it's not worth your money. So I'm telling you now so that you know it's not worth your money and you don't spend your money on it. So basically, the main villain they try to introduce is Psycho Pirate. And for those of you who don't know, Psycho Pirate is a character who can kind of control people. It's not exactly mind control. It's more like emotional control. Like, at one point in a comic book story arc, Bane used Psycho Pirate to help him get off his addiction to Venom. Like, whereas whenever Bane would start having like the cravings, the withdrawals, Psycho Pirate could use his powers to kind of like influence Bane's mind and just be like, you don't need the Venom. Be calm. Be at peace. At the same time, though, Psycho Pirate can get in your head and be like, you're angry, you're enraged, or he can be like, you're scared, you're terrified. It's more of like emotional control rather than just straight up mind control. But Psycho Pirate, this character, is controlling Aquaman. So the Justice Society comes across Aquaman, and at first they don't realize he's being controlled, but eventually they figure, it's like, it's whatever. Because here's the thing, like, as soon as they break Aquaman out of it, it's all pretty much just kind of like, oh, cool, Justice Society, hey, how are you, what's going on? Like, it's just not that worthwhile. Barry goes back to his normal timeline. Superman is in this movie both prior to Barry going back to World War II and during World War II, which is really weird. Like, that's another thing about how, like, this World War II that Barry's in is not the one that, like, he grew up being educated on. Because the future Barry's from, Superman, landed on Earth as a baby, you know, maybe 30 years ago. World War II was like almost 70 years ago. So for an adult Superman to be there during World War II, it's different. It doesn't. That's another contradiction. So there's little shit like in there like that's interesting. And it's just strange to me that they went through the trouble of making it so clear that, like, not only did Barry travel back in time, he traveled to an alternate reality. It's like, okay, well, if you were going to go that route anyway, why didn't you just bring it from Apocalypse War? Because that's what he was trying to do in Apocalypse War, was travel back in time and change some shit, create another Flashpoint, so that he could avoid the Apocalypse War ever happening. So why didn't you just lean into that? Why are you doing all this brand new shit? It's just DC and Warner Brothers all together. DC and Warner Brothers, they don't want to do a set universe. They don't want to do a set continuity. I've just come to the acceptance and realization of that now. They just do not want to. I think the kind of people who work for DC and write DC stories and illustrate DC stories and make DC animation, they like the freedom that the whole multiverse gives them to just do really wacky, off-the-cuff kind of shit. Like, hey, do we want to do a 1970s disco kung fu themed Batman movie? Okay, cool. Batman Soul of the Dragon. There it is. It's Batman in a 1970s era with a somewhat like disco funk music theme, and then also it's like a Bruce Lee martial arts movie, all crammed into one. And they can do that, and they have the freedom to do that because of this multiverse thing. But I think that they are just really afraid that if they commit to creating anything similar to an MCU, then that's just all the fans are going to really care about, and they're going to lose the freedom, because the money and profits drive what you are allowed to do as a creator, as a business. As much as we want to sit here and say that it's art, it is art, but there's a business side to it as well. And if your really wacky, artsy, original idea is not what people are wanting, and it's obvious that it's not what people are wanting to buy, then the executives, the people higher up at the company, are not going to let you do it. They're going to be like, no, we need to focus our efforts on the stuff people actually want to buy, because that's what's going to make us a profit. And I think somewhere deep down they just know that if they ever really commit to a single universe continuity similar to an MCU type of thing, but for DC, if they ever commit to that, they know that that's what the fans are really going to latch onto. And then at that point, their freedom to just do wacky shit is just going to go bye-bye. So they're really hesitant to do it. And like I said, even though these movies, they look like they share the same animation and they very well might take place in the same universe, that doesn't really mean anything if it doesn't build to something within that universe. It's really easy to go, oh yeah, this story, like I could sit here and go, James Bond and Jason Bourne take place in the same universe. We could say that, but it doesn't mean anything if we're not building up to a crossover where they're going to meet each other. You know what I mean? So, yeah. Overall, like, I 100% do not buy this movie. Don't buy it. It's not worth $20. What they should have done, and what they really need to do, is they need to just go ahead and commit to making movies that are good enough. They're worth the $20, because you're going to want to rewatch them. And, excuse me. They need to commit to making movies that are definitely worth the $20 price tag to buy them. They're good enough to where you're going to want to own them. But they need to at first put them out there for renting at like $4 or $5. Because that's how people are going to realize that how good they are. No one, you got to understand, like, people at DC, you got to understand, like, I know that they're called like the world's greatest superheroes, and like Superman and Batman are the two most iconic superheroes of all time. But you got to just kind of make your peace with the fact that DC has a bad rep right now in this day and age that we live in. So before you go just throwing a DC movie, especially an animated movie, out there with a $20 price tag, and that's the only way people can watch it, you really need to just kind of like be like, okay, maybe you need to accept that maybe you need to earn the public's trust back. So make a damn good movie. I don't care if it's live action or if it's animated or what. Make a damn good movie, and then just give it to us to rent for like a 24-hour period or 48-hour period for like $4 or $5. And then if you did it right and you really committed to making the movie good, not only will we'll pay the $4 or $5 to watch it because it's only $4 or $5, and then we'll see how good it is, and we'll see how much you committed to making this good DC movie, and then we will probably be willing to pay the $20 to buy it. But with DC's bad reputation in this day and age, just to put this movie out there for $20, it's like you just did yourself a horrible disservice, especially since you did not commit to making this movie good. You just slapped together another basic DC story, throw it out there, multiverse, we can do what we want, fuck everybody. No, like it's not going to work, and I 100% do not recommend buying this movie. And I would only recommend. Eventually, it's going to be able to rent. Eventually, it will probably be on HBO Max for free to watch if you subscribe to HBO Max. But if you ever do, the only time I would ever recommend watching this is if you are just in a real DC mood and you just want to watch something new DC that you haven't seen before, and you can rent this for like $4 or $5 or watch it for free on HBO Max because you already subscribe, then I would recommend watching it. But anything other than that, it's not necessary. It's just another DC story thrown out there, doesn't build to anything new, doesn't continue from the good shit we had before, and honestly, in and of itself, 6 out of 10, 60%, which is a D if we're going off of like school standards. That's a D. That's what you guys shot for here. You were like, let's do some D level shit, and then let's put a $20 price tag on it and demand people pay $20 for our D-level shit, and without any idea that it's D-level shit, we're just gonna like dupe them. So DC's getting kind of shady lately, in all honesty, and that's probably brought on by. Usually, people start doing shady shit business-wise when their backs against a wall. So I'm not saying I have any inside information into DC and how well they're doing. All I can tell you is, based on like just common sense, when your back's against a wall financially, that's when you start being willing to do shady shit. So you just kind of infer that using basic human logic. They did shady shit with Future State that I didn't really like, but that's a separate video. But overall, yeah, not worth the $20. Basic ass movie, 6 out of 10. Yeah. Take that for what you will. Please hit the like button if you like what you watch here. Check out some of my other videos. Maybe subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys next time.